Welcome to the MVFC First and Goal podcast, Spring Ball edition. I'm your host, Kelly Burke, and today pleased to be joined by the new head coach of Indiana State, Curt Mallory. Coach, welcome to the show. How are you?
Well, great. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on. Well, you were introduced as the 21st football coach at Indiana State back on January 23rd. Tell me, what has the past 2 months or so been like for you, and how have you balanced all the immediate needs that come with taking over a program?
Well, it's been crazy, but it's been a lot of fun. One of the first things that I wanted to do when I got on campus is I wanted to meet the football team. I drove from Indianapolis Airport straight to Memorial Stadium and met with the team. And we had a recruiting weekend going on that weekend, and so I had to recruit as well. But more importantly, I wanted to meet with each individual on our football team. And we started meeting that night, Friday night, and we went until about 1:30 at night. And then I got back with them early in the morning, about 5 a.m. until about 8 a.m. until had breakfast with recruits. So it was nonstop, recruiting, getting to know the players, and getting on the road recruiting, which we had to put together a class in a short amount of time, which we were able to do. And then, of course, putting together a staff. And as excited as I am to be here, I'm even more excited of the men that are going to be part of our coaching staff. And they're all men that I knew as husbands, fathers, and coaches. Either I worked with them or coached them. And so I knew the plan I wanted. I wanted to hire men that I knew with high integrity, with great character, and that I knew that would have the best interest of our players and these young men.
You know, you've been a coaching veteran for 22 years, and you've risen through the ranks as an assistant. And so how did that journey, to now becoming a head coach here at 47 years old, make it that much more gratifying for you when you accepted this job?
Well, I'm from the state of Indiana. I went and played high school at Bloomington South High School. It's where I was married. It's where my two boys were born. So Indiana's my home, and coming back to my home state and being the head football coach at Indiana State is a dream come true. I had a great opportunity at a young age after playing at the University of Michigan, going back and working for my father as a graduate assistant, where I later got a great opportunity to be hired at Ball State by Bill Lynch. And, I still look back the staff that I was able to be a part of at Ball State University, and by far was the best staff I was ever a part of. And in doing so and being part of that, those are still my closest friends in this profession. I worked 6 years at Ball State at a young age. I was around Bill Lynch, who's the head football coach at DePaul, who was the head coach at that time. Bob Bartolomeo was our defensive coordinator, and now he's the head coach at Indianapolis. Shannon Griffith used to be the head coach at Manchester here in Indiana, and Coach Otterbein, Keith Otterbein's head football coach at Hillsdale. So I got a great opportunity to work with a lot of great men. I just named about half of them, but it was a great opportunity and a great experience. And by being part of that staff, I knew how I wanted to do it if I ever became a head football coach. It was much like how Bill Lynch did it. He did it with men that he knew either he had coached or worked with. And so I had a great opportunity to work at Ball State. And I moved around throughout my career, whether it was in the Big Ten. I coached at Indiana, I coached at Illinois, I coached at my alma mater, Michigan. And then I also worked through the Mid-American Conference at Central Michigan, University of Akron, of course, Ball State. And then most recently I was out at University of Wyoming working for Coach Craig Bohl. And it was just a tremendous experience working for Coach Bohl and being around a coach who's done what he's done, not only at North Dakota State, but also what he's doing at the University of Wyoming.
Yeah, I'm sure he probably had some words of wisdom for you as you took this job. You said in your opening press conference that you win with people, that people make a place. And so can you expand a little bit on that philosophy and how you've even seen it at work here in the first couple of months at Indiana State.
People make a place. I mean, that's how I was raised. You're never going to be able to do it alone. It'll always be about us. It'll always be about we. And I know that, by no means would I ever be able to do this alone. And that's why I'm so fortunate to be part of a great staff and be around the great men that I'm working with daily. I just left a staff meeting, and I feel so at peace knowing that a lot of these coaches, that they're in great hands, or they got these young men at their best interest. And you cannot do it alone. We'll not do it alone. And the success that we're going to have is going to be on the people that I'm fortunate to be around every single day.
What kind of expectations have you quickly set for the players? And how do you go about, changing a mindset, changing a culture, especially for a group of men that's coming off a 4-7 season?
Well, the three things that I talk to them about, and I talk to them daily about, these three objectives will never ever change. Number one, they will earn a degree at Indiana State University. Number two, they will represent their family in this program in a first-class manner. If they don't do one of those two things, then they will not be part of this team. And I will not settle for anything less there, or we will not. And then the third thing is our ultimate goal, and it will always be our ultimate goal, will win the Missouri Valley Championship. And those are the three expectations that we talk about daily and will always strive for.
As you mentioned, you grew up around the game of football. Your dad, of course, being the winningest football coach in Indiana University history. Your two brothers coach in the NFL currently. Doug, the secondary coach with the Atlanta Falcons, and then Mike is an assistant special teams coach with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Was coaching a given for you, as a career path? And unlike your brothers, why did you decide the college game was where, you wanted to be?
Well, I think, with my brothers and myself, watching my father coach, it was always a passion, and the difference that he made in young men's life, I think was an easy decision for my brothers and I to choose this career path. We would go to practice and we would see how he approached each and every day. And then, I still come across so many players that my father made an impact on. And, and it was easy for my brother Mike or my brother Doug or myself to want to go into this great profession. And, my sister, I know she's has done her role in coaching some too, maybe not at the collegiate level, but she's been a teacher and doing some of the things too. And I know the impact that he also had on her as well.
In February of 1988, you committed to play football at Michigan, which is where both of your older brothers went. You did have an offer to go play for your dad when he was the coach at Indiana. And so how did you weigh that decision? And is that something that you and your dad, joke about to this day, that you decided to go play at Michigan? Because, as you mentioned, you were a graduate assistant coach under him at Indiana.
Well, I think, with my brothers and I, we all went through the recruiting process, and we all had other opportunities other than to play for my father or go to the University of Michigan. At that time, my dad's closest friends in this profession were coaching at the University of Michigan. And so when my brothers went through it and I went through it, my dad, he let us all go through the process. We took our 5 visits or went and looked at other places. But at the end of the day, there was really only 2 decisions that were going to be made, or 2 places. And when it got to me, it was kind of, I don't know if it was a joke, but I knew it was coming, that, and it was the same thing he said to Mike, the same thing he said to Doug, and the same thing he said to me is, you can go wherever you want in the country, but you're just going to have to decide between Indiana and Michigan. And I knew where he was getting at. I knew that at both places we were going to be taken care of, whether it was at Michigan or whether it was, of course, playing for him. And ultimately, that's what it was always going to come down to, is that he was going to put his sons in a position where people were going to look after him. The same philosophy that I've always gone by is people make a place. And he knew that the people that he had at where he worked, whether it was at Northern Illinois or Indiana University or at the University of Michigan, that they're going to look after his sons and have the best interest for them.
You know, you'll naturally, I'm sure you maybe already are, compared to your father and the distinguished career, that he had. I noticed when I was watching your opening press conference, you got emotional a little bit when you were talking about him. And he was there in the audience and obviously had a ton of pride sitting there watching you. And so how do you view those comparisons? And what kind of relationship do you continue to have with your dad till this day, and what have you learned from him?
Well, I don't know about the comparisons. That's obviously something that my brothers and I will always strive for. Just to try to have, somewhat of a career that he had. But I think in the end of the day, we all want to do it for the same reason. It's always about the kids, and it was always about that for my father. And at the end of the day, it was always about parenting, and it was always about teaching. And that's how it truly was watching him grow. But my father had a huge impact on obviously all of us in a lot of different ways. And obviously we all strive to be him someday. But I think I know he's proud of us all, and that we've chosen this profession.
What's it like at family gatherings? I'm sure it's hard to get all of you guys together in the same place at one time with the different football schedules and the different off seasons. But, when you, in particular, your brothers and your dad are together, what is that dynamic like? And does the conversation always turn to football?
Oh, not necessarily. It's talked about. It certainly is. It is our livelihood. But there are other things that we enjoy outside of football. But no, it is our livelihood. It does come up quite a bit in conversation. But to be honest with you, because of the profession, it's so hard that we all do get together. And, the Super Bowl, for example, my brother Doug was in the Super Bowl, and it was an opportunity for everybody to get together and be around one another. And of course, I couldn't make it. Had too many things going on here. But there's certain events that we get together, and football always brings our family together. Whether it be a coaches convention, whether it be a Super Bowl game, or a year ago, the Falcons and the Jaguars played. So football kind of brings our family together, and it is our livelihood.
My conversation with Curt Mallory continues shortly, but if you're enjoying this edition of the MVFC First and Goal podcast, check out all the Lineup Media Group podcasts featuring your favorite sports as well as non-sports content too. Now back to the show. Besides your dad, you mentioned some of these individuals previously in our interview, but who are some influential coaches that shaped you, and what have you learned from them?
Well, I would say, I have an 8th grader right now who is moving from Laramie, Wyoming, and that was a hard move for me. It was a hard move going from DeKalb, Illinois to Bloomington, Indiana. And, I think probably one of the most influential people that I was around was my freshman high school football coach, Al Gallo. And what an impact he made, because that right there was huge, because I really struggled with that move. And when I moved to Bloomington, Indiana, he was the one that really looked after me and made my experience in high school what it was. And so I really always looked to him. I had some other coaches that were obviously very influential. I knew that along the way I was very fortunate. I had a great high school coach, Mo Moriarty, who's still the head football coach at Bloomington South. We worked together at Indiana University, so he was a huge impact and a very, very close friend of mine today. And then I had an opportunity to work with or play for Bo Schembechler and Gary Moeller and Lloyd Carr. And those were obviously tremendous experiences in my playing career.
You know, when you were hiring your staff, you know, and you said, you know, they were obviously very familiar because you all coached together, most of you at Michigan under Brady Hoke. But what was the vision in particular that you sold them on? Well,
you know, the thing that, you know, really excited all of us was the opportunity. You know, they knew what kind of people were here. I told them about Sherrard Klingscales and the administration and their strength coach and our training staff and our sports information. I mean, there was just so many people that are involved that it takes to win. And when I interviewed for the job, as much as I wanted the job at Indiana State, I wanted it that much more after meeting everybody that was going to be involved. And I knew it wasn't just going to be about the coaching staff. I knew it was going to be much more. It was going to be about the support, the people that I work with on a daily basis. And when I came away from that interview, I mean, I was even more excited about possibly having the opportunity to be the head football coach at Indiana State. And then when interviewing it, you know, interviewing some of the other players or interviewing, excuse me, some of the other assistant coaches, that was the thing I really stressed was, boy, as great a place as we can make this, you're going to be really impressed with the people that are going to be working with on a daily basis.
So your staff obviously has this strong nucleus of coaches that were together for a while and really know each other. But what kinds of things have you done to develop and build chemistry with some of the newer and younger guys that you hired? And, you know, and I did think it was interesting that you do have 2 pairs of father-sons on your staff, which is neat.
You know, Daryl Funk and Tyler Funk obviously are a father-son, along with Craig Smith, who's our football operations, and his father's our assistant head coach and D-line coach, Mark Smith. So that's really a neat dynamic to see them being around each other. I know I had an opportunity to work with my brother Mike and also work with my father as a graduate assistant, and it was just those times were priceless, and kind of brings me back to having that opportunity back then. But again, you know, the thing that really makes us a close staff is we do have some veteran coaches on our staff, and we got some younger coaches, some up-and-coming coaches, just much like I was coming through it. I go back to the staff I worked on with Bill Lynch. I mean, we had guys like Ted Huber, who's a high school coaching legend here in the state of Indiana, coached in the college ranks, was an older veteran coach. Rich Spizak was a long-time college coach. You know, and then you had Bob Bartolomeo, who I mentioned, just to name a few. But then we had a lot of younger coaches, Dennis Springer and myself. Dennis is now the wide receiver coach at Northwestern. But it was the influence that they had on these young guys that really brought that staff so close. And when I put the staff together, I really wanted to model it like that, to have veteran coaches that could bring the younger coaches along and groom them to be great coaches someday, which is certainly going to happen someday.
You know, your background is particularly in defense, and, you know, I saw you'll run a 4-3 defense this year. Offensively, how would you describe your philosophy, and what aspects of your dad's power running game will it have in it?
Well, you know, I've worked with Jeff Hecklinski prior to hiring him. I worked with Daryl Funk prior to hiring him. And so our backgrounds and what we want to do, establishing the run, will always be where it begins. We will always run the football, and that's where it'll always start, along with defensively stopping the run. So I know it's a cliche, but it's a belief that we as a staff will always have.
You talked about Craig Bohl, who's the current Wyoming head coach and who you worked with last season, and he's obviously the former North Dakota State head coach that won 3 national titles with the Bison. And so what advice did he have for you, not only about winning in the Missouri Valley Football Conference, but about building a program in it?
You know, what he brought to North Dakota State was a model that Coach Osborne had at Nebraska with developing young men through repetition, and brought that to North Dakota State. And guys that wanted to stick, guys that wanted to be at North Dakota State, was the same model that we brought to the University of Wyoming. And fitting a young man, or getting a young man that fits the profile, that will come to Indiana State or went to Wyoming and want to be there, and not look around and say, you know what, this isn't for me. And a year ago, we had one young man quit the whole year, and that was a huge tribute to Coach Bohl and the plan that he had in place. And we played for the championship, and not too many people thought that we would ever have that opportunity. And but the guys that truly believed that that was going to get done were going to be the ones that were in that building. The players, the coaches, the administration, the people that, you know, you may not hear about, the sports information, the training. Everybody was involved. Everyone knew that that plan was in place and it was going to happen. And that's what happened. And that's the same model that I brought here, and the experience I had working for Coach Bohl was just unbelievable. And he gave me some great advice along the way. And it wasn't just one thing or the other. It was a plan that he had in place that I was fortunate to be a part of the last 2 years at the University of Wyoming with Coach Bohl.
Do you expect that you'll still be talking to him throughout, especially this first season?
Oh yeah, most definitely. We stay in touch. We're both, I know he's busy. I'm busy right now with spring ball, but we'll stay in touch through text messages and occasional phone call. But I've got a list of questions I'm going to ask him when spring ball gets over, because he's been really unbelievable as far as mentoring me and giving me advice on some of the things that maybe he wished he would have done a little different here when he first got to North Dakota State, or some of the things that were obstacles, and that he was able to work through to build what he built up in Fargo.
Well, speaking of communication, I'm curious what your view is on social media, and in particular what your own 3 kids have taught you about communicating with the current generation of young people.
Well, my children are always on their phones, and they're texting and doing all the Twitter, but it's something obviously is a big part of communication right now, and something that's very involved, very much part of what we do recruiting. And you do have to be on top of that. And then I think too, not only my kids, but really I have some coaches that I've hired that are really on top of that, and have helped some of the older coaches too. But you have to do that. It's such a big part of recruiting now.
All right, well, we're going to move into the rapid fire phase, so to say, of the interview. So I'm going to ask a question, and whatever comes to mind, make that your answer. Your idea of a perfect day with your family, your wife, Lori, your 2 boys, James and Sam, and your daughter, Margot.
On a boat.
Your favorite memory as a player?
Winning the Rose Bowl.
And can you elaborate, too, on the Rose Bowl in particular? That's one thing I was interested about. You not only played in it, but you coached in that game. And so what was it like to be on both sides of that type of stage and game?
It was unbelievably rewarding, to be a part of some great teams at the University of Michigan as a player and be part of that. It was just a tremendous experience to be in the Rose Bowl and to be playing in the granddaddy of them all, and played in 4 of them, or was involved in 4 of them, and 2 against Washington and 2 against USC. And it was just a tremendous experience. And then a few years, or I guess about 20 years later, got a chance to coach in one at the University of Illinois, and to be a part of that, what a special team that was. And just very honored to be a part of both both programs that played in the Rose Bowl.
Your favorite moment as an assistant coach?
Coaching in the Rose Bowl.
And then now your favorite moment so far as a head coach?
Oh, just the process. I'm enjoying the process and being around the young men and being around our coaches.
A sport or sporting event you are most likely to watch if football is not on?
Cubs game.
Are you a huge Cubs fan? Did you watch the game last night?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I thought they might pull it out there and pull it out in the end when they tied it up late.
Yeah, no. But no, there's long season.
Yeah. Although you did win it all last year, so.
Yep.
How
right.
How will you measure success and progress in your first year?
Oh, I think the thing number one is that, I want to see these young men leave here successful, and it's a process. Number one, graduate, and then number two, I want to see these guys compete. And when we were at Wyoming, and you asked about one of the most gratifying things I think as an assistant coach that I had last year was being part of the Wyoming team. Because it was something that nobody thought that you could do. And I know Coach Bohl would talk to people and say, we're going to beat Boise State, we're going to beat San Diego State, we're going to beat Colorado State, we're going to beat Air Force, and we did. And but no one was surprised except for the people outside the building. And that was probably, going back on the question, probably the most gratifying year I've ever had in coaching as assistant, was being a part of something that no one really thought you could do. And that's what is going to be the process here. We may not have a 10-win season next year, or a winning season, matter of fact, but to see them compete and to see them be in games and see them improve and get better, that's what I want to see next year, and that's what we want to see as a staff.
What's the best part of being back in Indiana, your home state?
Oh, being close to family and friends.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time today, and I look forward to meeting you in person instead of virtually here in the coming months.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, and good luck with the rest of spring ball. I know you guys just had your first scrimmage this past weekend.
Yes, we did, and we're almost at the halfway mark. It's flying by.
Well, if you like what you heard from Indiana State head coach Curt Mallory and our MVFC First and Goal podcast, be sure to subscribe, and don't forget to check out the many other podcast offerings from Lineup Media Group, including some of their newest shows, the 11th Inning Stretch, as well as the Drop podcast. Head to lineupmedia.fm for more info or to subscribe. You can also find us on iTunes and Stitcher.